Continuing from the previous episode 800. That girl, it seems to be someone from the Valley of Astrology? It seemed that they were looking at the two girls who were gradually moving away, and some people with good eyesight in the crowd immediately spoke up. Astrology Valley, a special sect. The number of people in this sect is extremely rare, and the practitioners are different from other sects. Most of the ordinary sects practice Do Qi, and except for the poison sect that cultivates poison Do Qi, or the sects that focus on physical exercise, such as the ancient wilderness hall, the Astrology Valley can be said to be a slanted sword. Because this sect is impressively practicing astrology, which is the so-called language. It is said that the true masters of astrology practice in their gestures, cut off life and death, and control life. It's just that it's not known whether it's true or not, but no one has ever reached that supreme state in the Astrology Valley, so the position of the Astrology Valley is probably enough to be ranked at the bottom of the entire Zon 3 days. With the help of the right time and place and some visions of heaven and earth, the occurrence or result of some things is inferred. Or change your life against the sky. The various legends about the Valley of Astrology can be described as extremely absurd. However, Astrology Valley has always faded out of people's attention. After all, there are too few strong people in this sect, and very few disciples. If it weren't for its particularity, I'm afraid it would have ceased to exist long ago. The two women just now were two disciples in the Valley of Astrology. The girl's name is Xing Taki, and she is a powerhouse in the late stage of the 6-star Do Emperor. As for the maid-like woman behind her, it is Xing Taki's little junior sister, Zhaobi, who is in the middle stage of the 6-star Do Emperor. Both of them are only average in strength. It is said that Zhaobi is an orphan who was abandoned. In addition, Xing Taki has been helping Zhaobi in the Astrology Valley, and Zhaobi regards Xing Taki as her own master, so there is a scene like a master and a servant now. Miss, what the asterisk is the spring of life and death? Zhaobi wondered, and she wrote how her master Xing Taki felt like she lost her soul when she heard the spring of life and death, as if there was a fatal thing in the spring of life and death. Attractive. Zhaobi, you don't know something. The airy spring of life and death is a strange place. It is said that the airy spring of life and death has the mysterious effect of changing the power of the human body. In addition, there are some very special effects, but there is no record in the history books. But the fact that we can evolve the energy of life in our bodies is enough for us to go. After all, in the entire 3 days of Zon, there is no response that can improve the level of the power of life, and the level of the power of life determines our combat effectiveness. It looks like this life and death Yiquan should be a good thing, so let's go take a look. Zhaobi laughed at herself and immediately followed. As the two women walked towards the location of the two springs of life and death, there were already many disciples around the two springs of life and death. Damn, it's really bad luck. I originally wanted to enter the spring of life and death to improve my strength of life, but now where is the spring of life and death? It's strange to say. I remember that others said that Yiquan of life and death is here. Why can't you see it? A group of figures said indignantly on a stone. Following everyone's abuse, I saw that this was actually a swampy area. In the swamp, the sky was full of trees, which blocked the line of sight, and the visibility was extremely low under the layers of fog. In the swamp area, keep in mind the danger. The layers of mist seem to have a mysterious power that is seductive. If you step on it a little, you may be swallowed by the swamp in an instant. However, among the crowd, in a tall tree, several figures slowly appeared here. Came back? How is it? With the trembling of the big tree, it seemed that someone was coming back, and then everyone around him stared at the two extremely burly men in front of him, and their voices were full of urgency. No. The beast guarding the entrance to the second Yiquan of life and death is too scary. Although the two of us are extremely strong in physical fitness, we can't break through. In addition, this is a swamp area. If you use a little body technique, you will be swallowed by the swamp, so it is difficult to deal with. One of the two burly figures said. These two figures are impressively the two talented disciples of the ancient desolate palace, Feng Hong and Du Chun. Impossible, even the two of you can't handle it? Chi Horan on the side spoke directly, his voice full of doubts. It's not that we can't handle it. Although the strength of that beast is comparable to that of the late human 7-star Do D, this is a swamp area after all. If it is above the ground, we naturally won't be afraid of it. Feng Hong snorted coldly and then spoke. I didn't expect you two to be helpless. The next moment, Chi Hao King stepped forward slightly and smiled. Chi Hao King just tried it, and the situation is just as Feng Hong and the two said. Chi Hao King, others are afraid of you, but I am not afraid of you in the ancient desolate palace. If you don't believe it, why don't you let your brothers go and try? Don't you know if you try it? Feng Hong immediately countered Chi Horan's nuo intimidatingly. It's all right, stop arguing. Just when the conflict between the ancient palace and the Xuanling royal family was gradually at odds, Song Yu of Wanjiamen suddenly stood up and said, I don't know, Brother Song, what's the best way? Chi Horan saw Song Yu coming out, and it was not easy to care about the people in the ancient wasteland, so he immediately turned his attention to Song Yu. Besides Song Yu, Hongqin stared at Chi Horan slightly. For some reason, Hongqin could always feel a very special aura from this guy, but he couldn't tell what it was, but he let him. Hongqin was extremely uncomfortable. The current method, I'm afraid. Since the strong can't be done, then the only way is to be soft. Song Yu didn't have a good solution for this, so he spoke immediately. Right now, there are not a few people around the Yiquan of life and death. Even me, I don't have enough confidence. If you share this news, I'm afraid you will get the benefits in the end. Chi Horan obviously knew what Song Yu meant, and immediately opened his mouth. Obviously, Chi Horan didn't want to give up this free hand. Then what else can you do? Song Yu frowned when he heard this. Oh. Chi Horan thought for a while, then said helplessly, Let's go, share this news and see who has a solution. The most important thing now is to break the Guardian in front of us first. Only by breaking the level of the Guardian will we have a chance to enter the spring of life and death. As for destroying the Guardians, it depends on their respective strengths who will go into the two Yiquan of life and death to gain benefits in the end. Song Yu said, Now, that's the only way to do it. Brother Chi Horan and Feng Hong nodded immediately after hearing the words. 5 more to end of this chapter. Continuing from the previous episode 801. This is where the vicious old monster lives? Xiao Yan and his party were not slow, and they arrived at the location of the so-called life and death airy spring. It's just that Xiao Yan suddenly became puzzled just after arriving here, and then asked Yueru. What appeared in front of Xiao Yan's crowd was a swampy area full of special smells and mists. In the swamp, bursts of strange bubbles continued to emerge from the ground. Obviously, this swamp is extremely dangerous. It's here. Facing Xiao Yan's question, Yueru insisted directly, because according to the information passed to her by the inheritance rune, the location of the second Yiquan of life and death is here, but the information passed by the inheritance rune to Yueru is only when it comes to the swamp. There is no information about where it is in the swamp. This is a swampy area, and there are so many towering trees. I am afraid that the two Yiquan of life and death may really be here. Mu Feng, who was silent on the side, suddenly said. Mu Feng knew a lot about these things, so the words of Yueru and Mu Feng at this time made everyone quiet down. A lot of people have gathered here, and some of them have a very obscure aura. I'm afraid their strength is comparable to that of a 7-star fighting emperor. It seems that a lot of strong people have already been eyeing this place. Xiao Yan glanced around the swamp area. His sight was blocked by layers of fog and towering trees, and then he opened his mouth. Thinking about it too, a mysterious place like the second Yiquan of life and death, which can improve the power of life, will definitely attract a large number of strong people to come. Someone came out. The next moment, Leng Fuyao suddenly said to the top of a tree in the sky. With Leng Fuyao's keen soul power perception, he naturally found a shadowy figure. Just after Leng Fuyao finished speaking, a dazzling light flashed from the swamp, and there was an extremely tyrannical aura along with it. Everyone. After a while, the dazzling light group suddenly landed on a tree in the sky, and then suddenly said, the sound was so loud that it instantly spread to the entire swamp. Song Yu? The voice just appeared. Xiao Yan knew that the voice belonged to Song Yu, and immediately became puzzled. Everyone can come here. It's natural proof that they are all powerful people, and I know what you are here for. So, let's be honest, life and death airy spring is in this swampy area, but if you want to enter it, there is one more level. We have already found the entrance to Yiquan of life and death, but the strength of the beast guarding the entrance is too terrifying, so we have no way to do it. Let's see how each person is created. Song Yu wrapped his voice with the power of life to ensure that it reached the ears of everyone in the swamp. Shabu Shabu. After a few breaths, a dazzling light suddenly erupted from Song Yu's body. Following Song Yu's actions, Xiao Yan felt the specific location of life and death Aries spring from the light group. How could this guy share the location of the two springs of life and death? Seeing this, Shu Qi naturally felt the exact location of the two springs of life and death, but became confused. Shu Qi understood Song Yu quite well. Although this guy is a swordsman, he would not give away such a precious treasure. I saw that the guardians of Yiquan of life and death should not be so easy to deal with. Xiao Yan thought of something, and immediately spoke. Because according to the hated old monster, this too Yiquan of life and death is occupied by the most powerful vicious old monster among the three monsters, and the vicious old monster has an excellent relationship with the beast, so this guardian is very likely to be very powerful. What happened? When did Song Yu get so good? Share the location of the two springs of life and death? I said, why can't I find the location of the two Yiquan of life and death? It turns out to be here. Some powerful disciples in the swamp area heard the words and muttered to themselves, and then passed on to Song Yu. Give them a place to go. Obviously they want to try if they can defeat the guardian, so as to enter the spring of life and death. How could Song Yu release such precious news? Lin Zudai said with a slight smile on top of a big tree. It is also strange to say that the jade feet of the people of the poison sect are not wearing shoes, only bare feet, and there are some silver bells at the ankles, which is quite strange. It seems that the guardians who guard the two Yiquan of life and death, even Song Yu and the others can't solve it, so now this news is released, in an attempt to let others open the way. Their strength is enough to sit back and enjoy it. Wu Du is Wei shaking his head. It was obvious that Song Yu's thoughts had already been guessed by him. Senior sister, what should we do now? Lin Zhu was slightly puzzled. Go and have a look. I have a hunch that Xiao Yan and the others are also here, so let's meet them first. After Wu Po finished speaking, he turned his head slightly and walked towards the spring of life and death. Do you want to cooperate with the people from Fenxiang Pavilion? Lin Zhu naturally disagreed when she heard the words, but her senior sister insisted that Lin Zhu was not good at saying anything. Let's go. After the five poisons finished speaking, the ***'s ankles exerted a slight force, and immediately went towards the Yiquan of life and death. With the exposure of the location of the second instrument of life and death, hundreds of strong men gradually moved away from its location at the same time. Outside the second instrument of life and death in the swamp area, it was restless. Up! Boom boom boom! A deafening voice sounded in the swamp. No one knew what it was. The only thing that was known was that the place covered by the swamp was the entrance to the second instrument of life and death. Protected by famous monsters, that magical beast inhabits the swampy area. No one has ever seen how sacred it is. However, the only thing that is certain is that the strength it displays may be comparable to the perfection level of the human 7-star Do Emperor. At this time, the magical beast was constantly rising and falling in the swamp area, and the swamp area also became bubbles due to the random stirring of the magical beast, and bursts of extremely foul smell emerged. Under that swampy area, an old man with a steady face slowly opened his eyes, and an extremely tyrannical wave was born immediately. This powerful wave is a representative of the 8-star Do Emperor level. I didn't expect that so many powerhouses would gather in the spring of life and death. Moonlight Island hasn't been so lively for a long time. After the old man finished speaking, a sneer appeared in the corner of his mouth. Obviously, this sneer was aimed at the strong man in the swamp area or something else, but beside the old man, a furry demon beast perched naively. If Xiao Yan was here, then he would definitely find out that this old man is a vicious old monster. Among the three monsters, the most powerful and vicious old monster. Ask for a ticket, today's 5th update, end of this chapter. Continuing from the previous episode 802. Gulagulu. Bubbles continued to be born, and then the stench became more intense in the swamp. Seeing this, Xiao Yan frowned. It was obvious that in this swampy area, many strong people had already been buried, so that such a foul smell could be emitted. Ouch! Naturally, Leng Fuyao had never seen such a disgusting scene and smell, so he couldn't help but take a sip. Are you alright? Qin Xin asked immediately upon seeing this. It's alright, it's just that in this swampy area, it seems. Leng Fuyao took a few breaths, improved a lot, and then spoke. Because Leng Fuyao discovered that the smell in this swamp area seemed to be stirring something, and there was a faint burnt smell in the smell. I wondered if it was his own illusion. According to Song Yu's news, here is the specific location of the second Yiquan of life and death. As long as we defeat this guardian, then we can also directly enter the second Yiquan of life and death. The second Yiquan of life and death, that's a good thing. Xiao Yan couldn't help but say something, when he thought of the method he gave him based on the hated old monster, plus the mysterious effect of the second Yiquan of life and death. It could solve the problem of lack of vitality in his body. Xiao Yan smiled slightly at the mysterious matter. Don't be too happy, there are already a lot of powerhouses around here, and there are 6 or 7 powerhouses at the level of the 7-star Do Emperor alone. I'm afraid it won't be so easy. Shu Qi immediately poured a basin of cold water. Rode, and looking at the appearance of other people, it is obvious that Song Yu has some doubts about Song Yu's words. Song Yu is the strength of the 7-star Do Emperor. If this kind of strength is powerless to the Guardian, I am afraid that other people who are not strong enough to be the 7-star Do Emperor will even dare not dare. It's moving. Mu Yingying followed Xiao Yan quite a few times. Naturally she had some unique insights. It seems that they are all waiting for others to do something. It's really a bunch of guys who are sitting still. Xiao Yan felt a lot of powerful auras above the trees in the swamp area, but no one had the intention to do something, so he said immediately. These guys, no one actually took action. Song Yu returned to the base camp, feeling that no one of the surrounding powerhouses took action, and immediately said, "The guy in the swamp is extremely powerful. I'm afraid they have vaguely discovered it, so they are reluctant to do it." Feng Hong heard the words and said immediately. Feng Hong and Du Chun had fought against the guy in the swamp before, but what surprised them was that the guy seemed to be in the swamp and would not leave. Every shot was under the cover of the swamp. But even so, the strength of that guy made the two suffer a lot. I can't wait like this, the things here are over, get the token to open Guanggan Island, and the more precious things are still on Guanggan Island, you must give them more material. Chi Horan's pupils flickered a little. Vicious, then without hesitation, the dazzling power of life in his hand directly attacked the swamp. They also had some battles with the guardians of the swamp area, and they naturally knew that doing so would only anger the guardians. Ow! With Chi Horan's terrifying shot down into the swamp, a terrifying roar suddenly sounded. Then the calm swampy land stirred violently. Under the swamp, there is something. Leng Fuyao immediately felt that something was swimming fast in the swamp, and then suddenly spoke up. "Asshole! You will anger that guy by doing this, we all have to die." Feng Hong shouted at Chi Horan when he saw this. The strength of the guardians in the swamp area is extremely terrifying, so irritated. I am afraid that the people here are in danger. That grandson did a good job. Bad luck. With the anger of the guardian in the swamp area, there were bursts of dissatisfaction all around. Only in this way will they take action, otherwise if they wait like this, I'm afraid. Chi Horan disagreed. Anyway, since ancient times, someone has to be a bad person. If they can achieve their goals, why not be a bad person? Strange, how could this guy make me feel a familiar wave? Not long after, Xiao Yan was about to make a move, but he felt a familiar aura from the constantly stirring swamp. I feel it too. It seems that this guy in the swamp has about the same strength as us. Mu Yinying said the same. Hot, flame, fire attribute. Could it be? Xiao Yan murmured, but his eyes and soul power suddenly went to the guardian in the swamp. It is said that the fire of life and death is where the vicious old monsters are, and this second Yiquan of life and death is occupied by the vicious old monsters. In addition to that guy in the swamp area, his strength and fire attributes are very similar. These kinds of things have to make Xiao Yan think more. I'll go down and have a look. I had an idea in my heart and said immediately. If the guardian below really has the fire of life and death, I am afraid that this time, the two Yiquan of life and death will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Be careful, if there is something wrong, just retreat, that guy is very strong. Yueru said slightly, relying on the mystery of the inheritance rune. Yueru could clearly feel the horror of the strength of the guardian below. It is said that the fire of life and death was born from a certain kind of magical beast. I don't know if it is the one below. Xiao Yan finished speaking. The splendid Emperor Yan flames flickered all over his body, and then blasted away directly from the trees to the swamp. Someone entered. Someone has shot. Following Xiao Yan's shot, there was a burst of excitement around them. They knew that if no one shot, they might not escape the end of destruction in the end. Xiao Yan, Wudu and Linju, two women, stood in a tree, just thinking about what creatures were in the swamp, but saw a figure wrapped in flames swept directly into the swamp. Xiao Yan, this guy is so afraid of death? When Qi Horan saw this, he immediately felt that the aura belonged to Xiao Yan, and immediately laughed. Hee, not everyone is as greedy for life and fear of death as you are. Du Chun saw Xiao Yan directly entering the swamp. Although he admired Xiao Yan's courage, he couldn't help but feel worried. Because when Du Chun fought with the guy in the swamp area before, he found that the guy's attribute seems to be fire attribute, and his strength is strong, which makes people afraid. This guy, did you find anything? As a girl, Hong Qian always felt that Xiao Yan's action was not accidental, but a huge discovery. Since he made a move, let's just wait for the good news. I hope this guy won't let us down. Seeing this, Song Yu opened his mouth slightly. As for Xiao Yan, Song Yu knew that this guy's true strength was probably enough to compete with him. And with Xiao Yan's shot, the surroundings suddenly became quiet, and they were all expecting Xiao Yan to defeat the Guardian, thus giving them a chance to enter the spring of life and death. End of this chapter. Continuing from the previous episode 803. Gulu, Xiao Yan was covered in flames, and his direct figure instantly disappeared into the swamp. This guy, just go on like this? Seeing this, the others in the swamp area admired Xiao's courage. The swamp area was extremely dangerous, and Xiao Yan was so reckless that he was afraid of dying. Trust him. Mu Yingying and the others just stared at the violently undulating swamp. If Xiao Yan was in any danger, they would not hesitate to take action. What a strong erosive force. Just after entering the swamp, Xiao Yan suddenly felt an extremely tyrannical erosive force emerging from the thick swamp beside him. There are signs of melting. This surprised Xiao Yan. You must know that Xiao Yan's Emperor Yan has a total of 23 different fires. Although the different fires are not comparable to the holy flames, so many different fires directly form the embryos of the holy flames. The fact that the powerful flame will be eroded by this swamp is enough to show the extraordinariness of this swamp. My dear, I hope you don't let me down. Xiao Yan knew that the more dangerous the place, the more precious the treasure was. He immediately ignored the erosion, increased the flame in his body, and swept away at the Guardian. Since the Guardian riot just now, Xiao Yan's soul power has locked it, so the position of the Guardian is naturally exposed to Xiao Yan at this time. I have to say, there is still another world under this swamp. As Xiao Yan got deeper and deeper, the swamp area with a fishy smell slowly disappeared, and it was replaced by an extremely hot wave, but this wave was not good for Xiao Yan. He is naturally not afraid. The lava zone. After a short while, the thick stench of the swamp in front of Xiao Yan disappeared without a trace, replaced by an extremely hot breath. Ho! Just when Xiao Yan was surprised how could there be such a hot molten world under the swamp, after a while, the Guardian's figure suddenly became restless and flashed by, and a deafening roar came out of the molten lava. Outgoing. Crash. Immediately, the extremely hot molten world in front of Xiao Yan instantly burst into a burst of extremely fiery red lava, blasting towards Xiao Yan. Playing with fire in front of me? Seeing this, Xiao Yan sneered at the corner of his mouth. Who is Xiao Yan, the dignified Emperor Yan, the Lord of Fire? This Guardian actually played with fire in front of Xiao Yan. This is tantamount to playing with fire and setting himself on fire. Emperor Yan. Xiao Yan snorted coldly, and instantly a splendid Emperor Yan poured out, destroying the seemingly ferocious lava at will. Xiao Yan has dozens of flames in his body. For fire attributes, unless he is stronger than Emperor Yan and Huoxin Tianyan, it is difficult to cause any substantial damage to Xiao Yan. Although the power of the lava here is not bad, at best it is only the level of different fire, so it is not painful or itchy. Furthermore, Xiao Yan had so many flames in his body, fighting against other people who also cultivated the fire attribute, that would undoubtedly take advantage of all kinds of benefits. It can be said without any fuss that the fire-type powerhouses of the same level are probably not able to cause damage to Xiao Yan. After all, Xiao Yan is almost immune to the fire-type attribute. Seemingly feeling that his seemingly powerful blow did not cause any damage to Xiao Yan, the guardian immediately floated out of lava, and a rather spectacular scene appeared in Xiaoyan's pupils. The guardian stepped on the molten lava, and some residual red lava slowly flowed down from his body. It really is a fire beast of life and death. Seeing this, Xiaoyan's eyes lit up, and he could not wait to subdue the fierce beast in front of him. What was reflected in front of Xiaoyan was an extremely hot melt, and on top of that melt, a behemoth stood on all fours, staring fiercely at Xiaoyan. The monster's body was pitch black, and the black hair all over his body looked rather vicious, and his pupils were surprisingly black, and he looked like a tiger. Against the background of the molten lava, it appears black and red, with terrifying limbs, and with that terrifying aura, it is a magical beast that is comparable to the perfection level of the human 7-star Do Emperor. The fire beast of life and death is said to be specially responsible for guarding the fire of life and death, but wherever such beasts exist, there must be fire of life and death. The so-called fire of life and death is not a flame, but a special medicinal material. This medicinal material is born at the intersection of flame and ice, and the medicinal material is surrounded by flames, hence the name. Hoo! The pupils of the life and death fire beast were full of provocation. It didn't understand. What kind of confidence did this human being in front of dare to go deep into the molten world? I'm not malicious. I came here this time, firstly to enter the legendary spring of life and death, and secondly to obtain the fire of life and death. Xiaoyan naturally knew that the monster in front of him would definitely understand human words, so he spoke directly. Human, your appetite is too big. But I have to admire your courage, you are the most courageous among so many people here. The fire beast of life and death opened his mouth to speak. Whether it works or not, you have to try it to find out. Xiaoyan also smiled, with a bit of killing intent in his smile. If it were someone else or another magical beast, Xiaoyan might still be afraid, but this fire beast of life and death is also a fire attribute, and don't forget, the two are still in the molten world. Being in the molten world, there is no doubt that there is an increase in the increase of life and death fire beasts, but if it is true, I am afraid that Xiaoyan is the biggest winner. After all, Xiaoyan's cultivation technique is still physical. For flames, it seems like a natural stunner. So fighting in this lava world, even if the strength of the life and death fire beasts reaches the unprecedented 7-star Do Emperor consummation, Xiaoyan is not afraid at all. Death. The fire beast of life and death also seemed to find that the flame on Xiaoyan's body was unusual and immediately stopped talking nonsense with Xiao Yi, because the mission of the fire beast of life and death, on the one hand, was to protect the entrance of the airy spring of life and death, and on the other hand it also protects the fire of life and death. The fire beast of life and death had just finished speaking, when the molten slurry under its feet suddenly shook violently, and then it turned into a behemoth and walked directly towards Xiaoyan. Little trick. Seeing this, Xiaoyan said something softly, although he felt an extremely huge power fluctuation from it. Then Xiaoyan didn't hesitate, and his fingers flashed a trace of the power of the khaki holy flame, and suddenly whizzed away at the molten creatures in front of him. Boom boom boom! The khaki holy flame just hit the molten creature, and the molten creature suddenly collapsed and turned into molten slurry. This human, it seems a little scary. Until this moment, the fire beast of life and death knew that this guy was different from the group of people who came before. Although the strength of the previous group was stronger than this guy, from the beginning to the end, they never made the fire beast feel such a severe pressure. Share fear, old guy, come again. Xiaoyan was playing happily, and immediately called out, since he came to this molten slurry, Xiaoyan felt that his combat power has skyrocketed. I am afraid that in this molten slurry, he will not use his trump card to deal with it. In the early stage of the 7-star Do Emperor, the powerhouses can do it without any effort. Ask for tickets. End of this chapter. Continuing from the previous episode 804. Hoo! When the life and death fire beast was so insulted, it immediately roared at Xiaoyan to express its anger, and then red light flashed around its body, obviously preparing to use its real power, because of Xiaoyan's strength, so that the fire beasts of life and death have to be dealt with solemnly. Are you really capable? Xiaoyan saw that the fire beast of life and death was like this, and immediately understood that this guy was ready to move the real chapter, and he didn't stop. Isolating Xiaoyan in this molten creature is like walking on the ground. Magma creature. After a while, the life and death fire beast suddenly roared in the sky. And with the astonishing cries of the fire beasts of life and death, the world of molten lava and the swamp area suddenly came out. What's the sound? When the people waiting above the swamp area heard the words, a strange flash flashed in their pupils. Magma creatures? Song Yu heard it clearly, and immediately hesitated. Because Song Yu also went down to the swamp area, and did not find any molten world. But now the voice was clearly made by the Guardian, and Song Yu dared to say that there was absolutely nothing wrong. Did you encounter the molten world after you went down? Chi Horan couldn't figure this out, so he hesitated and asked Feng Hong. There is no molten world. When the two of us went down, we were stopped by the Guardian, and we didn't even know what the Guardian looked like, let alone the world below. But under this swampy area, there are indeed some other spaces. Feng Hong paused and said. With Feng Hong's strength, he naturally felt something when he entered the swamp. If it wasn't for the Guardian's obstruction, it would be extremely easy to go down. It seems that Xiao Yan will do this, and he still has some evidence. After Chi Horan finished speaking, his voice suddenly became deep, and he was obviously going to do something. Don't go down, now the world is being turned upside down by Xiao Yan. If you go down now, I'm afraid it will be no different from dying. Song Yu stopped Chi Horan and said, even if it was his strength, he felt a sense of destruction from the bottom of the swamp at this time. Like fluctuations. When Chi Haoqing saw that Song Yu actually stopped his brother, he was immediately dissatisfied. Yes, then wait. However, Xiao Yan is such a jerk. Let's not fool him like the last time. After Chi Horan finished speaking, he immediately calmed down. Hearing Chi Horan's last words, Song Yu's cheeks ached, but he didn't show it. But the next moment, Song Yueba's eyes turned to Mu Yingying and the others, and then he said, don't worry, Xiao Yan and his teammates are still here. I don't think he is someone who can sell teammates. After Song Yu finished speaking, he tightly held Hong Qian's hand and continued to stare at the swamp, trying to find something. After the other powerhouses heard the exclamation, although they didn't know what it was, an extremely terrifying force in the voice made them tremble slightly, so they didn't dare to act rashly. Miss, what kind of fluctuation is this? Zhaobi said to her master. This should have been sent out by Xiao Yan and the Guardian during the battle, but I didn't expect Xiao Yan's strength to be so powerful. Xingtaki shook his head and said, according to her master's observation of the sky at night, it is said that there will be a catastrophe in Xuanxin-san, and the initiator of this disaster is said to be a young strong man with holy flame. As for how to end it, his master has not dispersed him. After a commotion, the people above the swamp area calmed down, but at this time, it was inextricable in the molten world. Boom boom boom. Molten creatures continued to emerge from the molten slurry, and then attacked Xiao Yan with a self-destruction test, which made Xiao Yan a little bit struggling. After all, the strength of these molten creatures was basically 7-star fighting emperor. One is fine. If there are more, I am afraid that Xiao Yan will be extremely difficult to deal with. How can this life and death fire beast control so many molten creatures? Xiao Yan thought while dealing with the molten creatures. The lava creatures in front of Xiao Yan have different shapes, but there is no doubt that the strength of each lava creature is extremely terrifying. In addition, they all attack by self-destruction, which makes Xiao Yan feel a while. Ha ha ha, human, if you hide like this, you will be consumed by me sooner or later. The fire beast of life and death immediately laughed as it watched the molten creatures summoned by itself chase it up and down. Don't be too happy too soon. Xiao Yan seemed to have noticed that every time the molten creature disappeared, if the life and death fire beast wanted to be summoned in Do, it must swallow a mouthful of magma before it could be summoned in Do. Go! Xiao Yan threw out 2 extremely huge waves of flames at Zaidu, attacked the molten creatures, and immediately thought. There's something wrong with this melt. After a while, Xiao Yan seemed to have found the problem, and immediately stared at the melt under their feet. This molten slurry looks extremely hot. Although it is not as terrifying as Sheng Yan, it is no different from Xiao Yan's abnormal fire temperature. Red lava, a lava creature that can attack. Xiao Yan murmured in a low voice, and the next moment, Xiao Yan grabbed a trace of red lava with one hand. Why does this melt have a cold smell? What kind of person is Xiao Yan? His huge perception sensed something wrong with the red melt at a glance, and immediately stared at the black fire beast of life and death. Give it to me. Kill him. Naturally, the fire beast of life and death will not know the secret that Xiaoyan has guessed here, and it is still the same as always, summoning the molten creatures and attacking Xiaoyan. Xinyo 81 Zhang Weian Wang Wu, Kai 8, approximately 1 ZS, Koem, fire beast of life and death, what else is there below? Take me down to see. Xiaoyan said directly. Below? The fire beast of life and death was shocked when he heard Xiaoyan's question, and then stared at Xiaoyan vigilantly. It's also a molten world below. If you think about it, I'm afraid you're courting death. The fire beast of life and death said disdainfully, but he was extremely shocked in his heart. Below is the place where the thing is stored, and in that place, I can't stand it for much time. Besides, that thing is so precious. How could I go down with human beings? If I go down with human beings, it will definitely be taken away by human beings. Would you take it or not? But in the next moment, Xiaoyan didn't have time to talk to the fire beast of life and death, and a khaki-colored holy flame appeared directly all over his body, full of killing intent, staring at the fire beast of life and death. How can it be? Holy flame. The eyes of the life and death fire beast were extremely sharp, and the moment the flame on Xiaoyan's body just appeared, a trembling burst of fear suddenly appeared. Life and death fire beasts are also fire-type beasts, but they have no resistance to the power of flames. Moreover, life and death fire beasts are clear, and the guy with holy flame is. It's extremely cold below, even I won't be able to stay for long. I can take you there. But there was a treacherous flash in the pupils of the fire beast of life and death. Obviously it had some purpose. Ask for tickets. End of this chapter.